Wayne Gretzky quote that I love. I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it has been. And we've always tried to do that at Apple, since the very, very beginning. And we always will. So thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are launching the brand new Iron Plus and Iron Max. Thank you. So the Iron is the future of the mobile phones around the world. The phone that will change your opinion about technology and about everything. So the price of the new Iron starts only with 999 USD. I guess it's reasonable price without accessories. So the screen, the case, the charger, everything you wanna add to your phone are only with let's say $500. It's good. Because we are not for mobile phones. We are here for experience. Thank you. Good morning, gang, and welcome. Today we're gonna have a let's say a deep talk about the iPhone and the story behind it. Let's just have a search in the past. The CEO of iPhone, how he did succeed, and it is what it is now. So let's get into it. California, 2015, in a town called San Bernardino. Two persons, as normal in USA, entered to a pub or whatever it is, and as normal they bring up their arms and they started shooting normal people who were dancing and stuff, leaving 14 bodies.
By order of the peaky blinders.
Among many injured. Among the exhibits, the Federal Bureau of Investigations in USA, the FBI, had seized the iPhone 5C under the iOS 9. The iPhone belongs to one of these two terrorists whom entered to the pub and whom finally and gladly killed by the police. But since the police have no access to that phone, they decided to go to Apple to, let's say, beg for permission and for passcode to access to that phone. The iPhone, as normal, have been locked after 10 failed attempts, so the police have no chance to access to the data on that phone. What should we do next? So, as I said, the FBI has turned to Apple, begging them for allowing them to access to that phone. Can just, dear Apple, create a bespoke backdoor so we can just borrow to read the messages of this criminal. Thank you. In order to find possible... Oh, wait. It's good. In order to find possible information about the motivations of these terrorists and about the network whom they work for, and of course to anticipate of the other attacks. Guess what? Apple, through the CEO himself, Tim Cook, back in that time, he's still now the CEO, but also back in that time, defended and said no in front of the government and in front of the FBI, and he said that Apple will not comply with the request, sadly, so as not to create a dangerous precedent for the safety of any iOS user. So this confrontation between the Apple and the FBI had focused the attention of a big society around the world. But hold on, how Apple has a personality to say to the government or to the FBI No, and easily stand against them. To understand the glory of Apple, we must come back to the era of Steve Jobs. We must come back, of course, to the 2007. Steve Jobs, the founder and the CEO and the head of Apple, Apple's biggest decisions. So, so Steve had, in my opinion, the reasonable decisions ever. When Steve said, let's let's just make a phone without keyboard or without that physical buttons. Exactly, that physical buttons. So let's make a phone without physical buttons. Back in that era, Steve was like a fool or something like that, because only in the concurrence was Nokia and BlackBerry. Something like you need to go to the gym if you wanna click the buttons. So Steve wanted to change the whole game. After buying Fingerworks, Steve had a clear vision of how the new futures would be. And finally, Steve is launching the WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference, where Steve Jobs is launching the brand new iPhone 1, which contains many features and many crazy things back in that time, like the map, like the Wi-Fi, Safari, the AirDrop, like some crazy things you would never imagine back in that time. And let's say he made us back in that time imagine that if we bought that phone, we would just jump to the future.
Software that's at least 5 years ahead of what's on any other phone.
With no exaggeration. Scott Galloway, in his book The Four, said that Steve Jobs have a strategy called the luxury industry, which is a sort of production of premium things, of luxury products such as Maybach or Brabus or something like that. In 2016, Apple, with this strategy, had from the market of cell phones only 14%. Instead, Samsung had 20% of this market. But in terms of revenue, Apple had, guess what, 80% of the revenue from this market. Only with that few amount of phones that Apple they sell, they succeed to gain more. Like, what the hell, Samsung and iPhone, just 100 grams of plastic and I don't know what material it is, they make that big amount of revenue. Imagine. Instead, Samsung, they, let's say they sell big amount but with low prices or something, that makes Apple always on the top. So this difference is made only by the luxury branding. Luxury branding? Yes, luxury branding. So the luxury branding is to sell a dream or something's availability is not for everyone. Let's say it's an illusion of a jump and a stair up to be one of that social class that you are not if you only have Samsung or something like other brands. So holding that precious thing makes you unique, such as driving that Brabus, which I love. So the challenge was for Uncle Steve is to jump from a technical brand to a luxury one, to make people love holding a phone with a little apple on the back. But before 2007, when Apple had only the Mac and stuff, the concurrence was in a big progress. They made some crazy processors which they can handle all the games back in that times, which mean they had a pragmatic speech to convince the potential customers. Yeah, that's it. Can you just correct below if it is potential clients or potential customers? So you buy, for example, the processor Intel for this, and this. You can play this, and this. So they give you a speech with numbers and stuff. So everyone thinks with his brain would just be convinced with that offer. Apple then decided to choose another place in the body to look for, because the brain is already convinced by the concurrence. I came now to use translator, and I realized it that something shouldn't be here. Yeah, that's it. This shouldn't be here. Apple decided to persuade, not to convince the people, which mean we will address his heart and not his brain. Apple succeeds somehow with this, and they started to get a very big base of customers, of course. But the glory of everything ends if the details are sexy, so they added even the sexy part to the product, and giving the design a very big interest in our company, to be always the first who brings many features to our phone, such as the dynamic island these days, and turn normal icons and tasks as easily as possible, as simply as possible, and as smooth as possible in the transitions and stuff, which make the phone even more attractive, even more sexy, and makes you think to buy the 14 Pro Max, even if you just have the 13 Pro Max, because the new features are always there, and always makes you think to upgrade. The iPhone 14 Pro Max depends on materially.com. They said that the phone costs to build the entire process like $464, but they sell it with the price, you know. So the recap from this and from everything before is that you are not just buying the material itself or the phone itself. You are buying the glory, you are buying the design, you are buying something spiritual, not even you can touch. You are buying admiration and respect somehow, and of course you are buying a social status. You are also buying a story, so the story can change the price. Jobs used one more clever thing. So he decided to put some stores live between many luxury stores around the world, biggest and luxurious brands and famous streets, such as Champs-Élysées in Paris, in Paris, or Georgia in Sydney, or the Mall of Emirates in United Arabian Emirates. So in the biggest, or in Shanghai, in the biggest and famous streets around the world. So Apple decided to be there and to target that people whom they walk there, and to target the minds to compare between something in other streets and in the street of the luxury brands. So it's mentally more than technically. So if you have a startup Just call it, don't call it apple, call it banana, and find for yourself a store in Champs-Elysees, so you would be famous, trust me. Back to Apple, let's forget about the banana. Back to Apple, they succeed to make almost 300 stores around the world in the famous places, as I said. I call them temples because body, as you know, everything glorious needs first a story to be told, a story of Steve Jobs and his ups and downs, his fight with cancer, and everything, his famous words he said, his speeches he say, his WWDCs and everything. Everything glorious I said needs a story to be told and a legendary epic hero. In our case, it's Steve Jobs, and of course, a temple or a store where your story would be told again and again. It's same as in the temple, again and again until everyone gets it and it becomes normal and something granted. And that's exactly what Apple succeed to do. So saying no to the Federal Bureau of Investigations is, in my opinion, one part of the story of Apple. Because if Apple said yes, we can do that, in my opinion, the story would be destroyed of Apple. Would only have a hero and a temple without story. So Apple had to build their personality and had to say no. Also, the story of Apple and this glory of Apple just made us think about the moral value of the product and not the financial value itself. All this made Apple had the biggest value of loyalty of people. So 78% of the people whom they already have a phone of Apple, they will not change or swap to another brand because they are already loyal. And it's normal because you are just buying something glorious and simple to use, of course, with crazy good cameras and crazy good features. That's it. I mean, that's it for today. Thank you guys, and don't forget to support me. Goodbyes, and see you the next.